ngalo na la wato kuma ta baki asira linga da fo ko nyi founding kila
hey elafta maboro la bank kalpo efa igiso SO na yuna jang ibadin kilalto kati yuna wallet ibe falindiro ke kan sandiri nyat
ni la yuna wallet to si muna fanno tulo yabo mano kandrin en fen jama isi sanno la yuna wallet to kono yalla kamo soto ila wallet to kono
alkana la konda no tay ka yuna wallet anatan tolle bukan na balwo fanondi abe sona yaren ko bulu podo ne la mobile scan yo science ise maboro ke wato men diate
ko be sandro ke fangole ba ko ba ke kan dimbalem isi ñun lonko e sandro se yona enterprise wato wati ani la yona wallet to la e be lan kam soto kay la wallet to kono
alina ngakafun nanyi yuna dimbayal kan kasandiro ke yuna bitikoto alina kata nyin ko kentat na sulo fen lolu si sandiro kije se maboro fanan keje
mono jun diana nyum ko di mabal ni kadeda
Hello and welcome to another edition of our show. It's another Thursday and we're back here in the studios with Dr. Gajigo. Doctor, welcome back to the show. It's been a while.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Always happy to be back.
Okay, we have to have you on the show, right? There's so much going on, you know, from the Republic's crazy investigative story that shook the nation. I don't think there's ever been any story that had this kind of effect in modern investigative journalism. And like I keep saying, we have to give kudos to Mustafa Kedabo for what he has been doing all these years. I mean, this is not the first time he's doing so much effort to bring light to what is going on in our society, from the Banjul Ports Roads project to the Ministerial Fisheries issue, to so many other mining and so many, all sectors of life. He has done investigative report, but this one stands out. I think this one stands out and has have an impact that no story had ever had, and we want to thank him for that. But Gajigo, first let's look at, we're going to look at all of that, the story, the impact of it, and the inquiry that is going on, and obviously the aftermath, everything that came, the born of Gala, the protests, what has been said, all of that. I think it's important to look at this because there's so many things happen. First, when you saw the report, what was your initial reaction?
Well, I mean, my initial reaction, I mean, was on two levels. First, I wasn't surprised something bad like this happened. I had an inkling, that something like this was happening. Yeah. But what shocked me was the degree of it, the brazenness of the act at the highest levels of the government. I mean, we have the Minister of Justice and the Attorney General of the country. This is the Attorney General is the chief legal advisor to the country. If you have corruption reaching to that level of government, basically there's no level of the government that has been untouched. So for me, it was, initially it was a deja vu. Like, I'm not surprised there is something, because the transitional justice has stalled completely all aspects of it. But the degree here that is uncovered by the Republic, to me, was truly shocking. The brazenness of the act, how blatant they were, and the complete lack of consequence and lack of any desire on the part of the government to correct all the misdeeds. Because, I mean, in all honesty, it's not possible, even in the cleanest of the government, to prevent all wrongs. But when wrongs occur, you know, there should be, we should at least see some attempts at trying to, I mean, some desire on the part of the people in positions of responsibility to try to correct those wrongs. And what this problem has shown is that there has been no desire at all levels of the government, to address the clear and blatant wrongs that have been done against the country.
Now, looking at the report, when the report came out, obviously, so many instances, the former Minister of Justice, a lot of people felt disappointed as the Attorney General, how the Commission of Inquiry report was handled, the sale of the items, and some, how do you call it, some conflict of interest that happened. Because I think more what the report showed was the conflict of interest that happened. The report did not directly say Ba directly benefited. The report didn't say that. It just showed instances where there were a lot of conflict of interest in his dealings during that process, and also obviously how some of the assets were disposed of, and how we still cannot account for others. And then this led to the government releasing some part of because it's not full, huh?
No, it's not
some
full.
list. In fact, what is left is more
Yes.
than, especially when it comes to the assets.
And their hands were forced. These lists should have been released since.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, it's not only incomplete, but it's not also voluntary. They were forced to do it. Yeah.
Now, you know, the constant raise of conflict of interest in the report. How would you say? Because I tell people we are all related in this country, in some way or the other. You know, if Dr. Gajigo is my friend and he has something somewhere, and I could call and make excuses to follow up something for them and others, is that a problem in our governance system?
No, it is a big problem. Listen, there is nothing wrong occasionally doing a favor for a friend or relative. But at a certain position of responsibility, in a certain critical point in the nation's affairs, where one has to be very careful. I may even give a bit of a leeway to somebody who has maybe who's new to government, who is not educated or is a bit unclear about legal affairs. But here we are talking about the Minister of Justice, the Attorney General. In some countries, these two ministries are actually separated.
Yes.
Here we've combined. This position is of very, very importance in the country. I mean, on one hand, you know, you are basically like, you should in fact be able to take the government to task as the Minister of Justice.
Yeah.
But as a Attorney General, you are actually the most important legal advisor to the government.
Yeah.
So you are straddling this very fine line. But, you know, conflict of interest, I think, for me to use that phrase is very, it's very diplomatic.
Okay.
Here it is pure and simple. What I will say, and I'll say this unequivocally, and I'm not going to mince words about it.
Okay.
Batambedu, what he did here is unethical, is corrupt. He's a, so I will say this in very clear terms. He's a corrupt and unethical officer. And this one is just, this case just revealed it far more clearly.
How is he corrupt though? Because he didn't directly benefit in this.
But how do we know? The person on whose behalf he was involved in is whom? Isn't it a spouse?
But then they were not married at the time of the...
But they got married shortly.
Okay.
Relationships that end in marriage don't start overnight. They start over time. There is significant relationship, a build-up of that relationship. So that relationship was there. And according to people quoted in the story, their understanding of it was Batambedu was involved in this particular land allocation because as if it was his. So that land transaction benefited somebody who he later married. So what is a reasonable interpretation of what happened? That if you, I mean, in most situations in the world, marital property is jointly owned. Of course, at the end of the day, in this particular story, that land ended up being sold by the ex-husband of the person involved. But that didn't change the fact that the person who was benefiting was somebody who was in a relationship with Attorney General, who he later ended up marrying. So to say that that didn't benefit him personally or directly is hair splitting. It benefited him because it was benefiting somebody who he was going to be heavily invested in, whose affairs and him would later become intertwined in all aspects of life, socially, legally. So this is pure corruption. But this is not the first time we know Batambedu has done unethical things. There have been, I have written many articles about Batambedu.
Yeah, yeah.
We've had situations here where, again, there's somebody who should know the clear boundaries of law, what is acceptable, what is ethical, went and procured diplomatic passports for his parents to travel to Saudi Arabia. The parents were performing no public or diplomatic duties for the country. Is that the proper use of diplomatic passport? You don't have to be a lawyer to know that that was improper. What was his response when that was brought up to him? He simply requested it. They needed to travel in comfort. Very poor reason. If you needed to travel in comfort, you go and buy a business class ticket. A diplomatic passport doesn't automatically give you an upgrade. What is clear here is that our Attorney General, somebody who should be, should go out of his way to know what is happening legally, what is correct, not only, something that appears proper, but also is proper in essence, was the one who actually was engaging in activities where the Gambia government was shortchanged, because these assets were completely, forfeited by the state, which means they become property of the state. So anytime they are disposed of in a way where their value is not realized, the whole Gambian nation, every citizen there is shortchanged.
Yeah.
And when through that process, when the people who benefited in that are close associates and relatives of the Attorney General, that is pure corruption. There is no two-way about it. It is corruption. To say it's conflict of interest, in fact, is very diplomatic. Yes.
Oh, but okay. I at this point I didn't even know what to say to this because I got confused already. But Ba actually gave his response. I'm sure you read that too.
I did.
He gave his response and said when he acted as the minister, and also he didn't do anything that was, out of his scope, and everything that they did was legal and in line with the law of the land. They set up the commission to inquire, and the commission did an amazing job. Would you agree that the commission of inquiry did an amazing job? First, let's look at that. Because I've seen Dr. Cisse and others now saying, Dr. Cisse just said that the commission failed the nation. The president also, at some point, threw shade at the commission. We will come to that. But let's look at the commission itself. What do you think of the commission of inquiry, the Janneh Commission?
Me, as far as I'm concerned, the commission did its job.
Okay.
Now, I'm not a lawyer, and there may be some other aspects, some other little technical details there about what they're supposed to do, they didn't do. But by and large, my understanding of it, as a layman, I'm not a legal expert. My understanding of it as a layman was that the commission is an inquiry.
Yeah.
The actual thing of meting out justice, like prosecuting those who were found to be wanting or who were adversely mentioned.
Yeah.
That was, the commission would do a list of recommendations.
Yeah.
They are not supposed to go and do, be the prosecutor, the judge, and the jury. The responsibility of the government, as far as I'm concerned, if we have two parties here we want to focus on, that is the commission and the government.
And the government.
By and large, I would say largely the commission did what it was supposed to do.
Okay.
There are reports, anybody who listened to it, we've got a good idea of the people who were adversely mentioned, what they did wrong, the scope of their activities, and some degree of the damage they did.
Yeah.
They had a clear set of recommendations. Those reports were submitted to the government.
Yeah.
Now, the government had its responsibility and things it was supposed to do.
Yeah.
It published a white paper, which we all remember in 2019 was a terrible piece of document.
Yeah.
Because it did not take the recommendations seriously.
Of the commission. Yeah.
A lot of people who were recommended, things were supposed to be taken, actions were expected to be taken against them. When the government found it in their political interest, they disregarded
And this is where I want to come in. First, Ismaila should know it is the government that failed the nation.
Exactly.
Not the commission. When the commission recommended that some people should not be in government because of the financial mismanagement they did, encaissing millions and millions of Gambian taxpayers' money from the central bank without any proof,
Exactly.
you still left them in government. You made some ministers.
Yes.
You made some other senior government positions. When the commission also recommended there's some businesses that we should not ever deal in them with business, the government still kept doing business with those people.
Exactly.
Some people that were not supporting them,
Yes.
people like Mamadou Sabali,
Yes.
they even stopped him from running as a candidate.
Yes.
When he wanted to be a candidate when a lot of us believe he should have been the candidate in our area, Busumbala constituency.
Exactly.
They stopped him. In fact, that caused a lot of craziness. Our Ovivan glass was broken during that protest. But when he decides to support the president, what did they do? Certificate of urgency to the National Assembly to be able to pardon all of those people, including Mamadou Sabali. Exactly. Now, it is the government that failed us without implementing the recommendations of the commission. I think that is clear. All of these things that I've catalogued and many more that they have done with let's forget about the assets, because we will come to what the commission said about the assets.
Exactly.
But just these things, people that were implicated in the commission's report, and the commission's made the recommendations, the government did not fulfill those. Some of them they did, yes. Some of them they didn't. And even the ones they did later, they changed it because of political reasons.
Considerations.
That is why we can openly say it is the government that failed us.
Absolutely.
Not the commission.
This one is absolutely clear, just as you said.
Yeah.
And we can name the people. You have Ousman Sise, Chief of Protocol.
Oh, yeah.
You have Mambure Njai and others. I mean, the government even had this comical thing of just writing a sentence. Mambure has been reprimanded. Reprimanded how? So there were clear recommendations about key individuals. When they needed those individuals for political reasons, they completely ignored the commission's recommendation. When it was convenient for them to punish Mamadou Sabali, he was punished. Mamadou Sabali, was prevented, basically was told you cannot work in government. He was basically
stabbed to death.
Yeah, and then you cannot
work in government.
You cannot run as an assemblyman.
You cannot do anything.
When at some point it was in their interest to bring him back,
you make him special advisor.
You made him special advisor to the president.
This country
what
is a
has
joke.
Changed?
Nothing has
Nothing
changed.
has
His
changed.
political affiliation is the only thing that changed.
That changed.
Yeah.
Basically, what he has done in the government, nothing has changed. So it is not on the basis of law or justice or fairness that that made the government change its position on Mamadou Sabali.
Yeah.
And because other ministers and other government officials who they found important, useful to protect, they protected them. So it is this government, headed by Adama Barrow, that failed the nation in the implementation of Janneh Commission. So if you ask me, Janneh Commission, I'm not going to say it's perfect.
It's not.
Nothing is perfect.
Yeah.
But my position is that they did a very good job of what, in terms of their terms of references, they did a good job of fulfilling that. The nation had a very good understanding of the scale, not the totality, but the scale of the of the damage that some people did, and all of the institutions and the individuals involved. But when it came to the Janneh Commission, in fact, there's this incident I want to bring to your attention. In 2019, when the Janneh Commission report was finished, and then the government issued their white paper.
White paper, yeah.
So there was a publication of the reports of the various volumes of the commission.
Yeah.
There was some funny game actually played by the government. When the government office printed the various volumes, first of all, they made a big deal of announcing the volumes have been printed, when at the time of the announcement, they were not out yet. And I remember calling one of the ministers, and they were telling me, oh, it's not gazetted yet. Eventually, when they were printed, I noticed in volume 3, a lot of the other volumes were, there were many copies at the government printing office. But volume 3 had only few copies. And within a matter of hours, they were all taken away. Either somebody bought them quickly, somebody who was informed bought them quickly, or I don't know what happened, but I know only few copies were printed.
Yeah.
Because when I and several others went to buy, there was not a single copy of volume 3 available. What is in volume 3? Volume 3 is the report that had the list of Jammeh's assets. And when that was gone, the government didn't print any further copies. And as you know, the government printing office will only print what order the government gives them.
Yeah.
So I don't blame the printing office. But you get a sense of the fact that this issue with Jammeh's asset, the problem started way back, which is why I said I am not surprised something has happened. Something wrong has taken place. Because since then, I had a feeling that something was happening with Jammeh's assets in a way that was not transparent. Because from the printing of and the release of the report, the government, led by Batambedu, because his ministry was the one that largely was responsible for the publication of these volumes. From there, it was quite clear they were playing some shenanigans with this report by by limiting the public's knowledge of the scale, the size, the values, and the distribution of Jammeh's assets. So this whole thing, I mean, we'll go to the details later, as you said, but people should know that it's something that has been ongoing for quite a while. Yeah, and the fact that they wanted to limit people's knowledge of Jammeh's assets, so that you begin to wonder why. Now this report has made quite clear. The reason why they wanted people's knowledge of this thing to be limited is that a lot of these things could happen in the dark. And were it not for Mustafa Dabo's reporting, we probably wouldn't have known the scale of all of the wrongdoings that has occurred.
And one thing that stands out for me also is how the government inherited this document, how they managed it, how they archived it.
Which document?
The commission's report.
Yes, okay.
Because, for example, the commission handed over, somebody told me, it's a box full that can fool this house, the commission reports. It's a box that can fool my studio, right? Somebody said to me, somebody close to the commission said this to me and said, because we were discussing this, this guy, Dr. Cisse, said the commission did not give them comprehensive report of the sales of the Jammeh assets. And I'm looking at Appendix 1 in the intro, talks about the sale and forms of part of the report. I'm looking at where it says ivory at Kanilai, personal effects of the former president, luxury vehicles at State House, the aircraft, ex-president's compound in Kanilai, all the contents, just in the intro, Appendix 1, is giving you all of that. And obviously, it's in the details now. The minister is telling us he was not in government meanwhile, but he said that's what the Minister of Justice told him. Now, one thing that I know, when this report came out, and when all of the brouhaha was going on, the ministry didn't even have all of the reports of the commission. They had to contact people from the commission if they had copies for them to be able to release what they needed to release. What does that tell us?
Exactly.
They didn't have a comprehensive, proper management of these commission reports.
So the question I want to have, I have for Mr. Cisse and the whole government, not just Cisse. Cisse is just a mouthpiece who actually doesn't know any detail about this thing. I mean, he would go on TV and say anything. So it's actually pointless to address Dr. Cisse himself. He has no idea what he's talking about. But I want to address the whole government. Now, the question is it only now, after Mustafa Dabo's report, that you are becoming aware?
That's what the president said.
Well, so this is the question. Is this only now that you are becoming aware that things were not done properly with regards to Jammeh Commission? If that is the case, that is the biggest indictment of your incompetence and your own complicity in this whole thing. Because you are the government. Remember, you are the first government after a dictatorship. A government like that has been entrusted with a very big responsibility of carrying out transitional justice. You, government, actually made this commission, set up this commission. You would think your first responsibility would be, after this commission has done its job, you have a clear look at it. After all, you published a white paper. If you had any misgivings about the commission and its job, that should have come out at that point in 2019 after they completed their job.
Yeah.
If you had any misgivings or any questions about whether they carried out their job, that was when it should have come out. And let's say you found out some things after that 2019. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Why didn't you do something about it? Why didn't you do further investigation? Why is it that 6 years, or 6 years after that, is now you are coming out and saying something about your unhappiness or supposed unhappiness about the commission? Is it that you have no responsibility unless you are pushed by people? You won't go and do your job as the government of the country. I mean, you have the whole of the government machinery at your disposal. Why is it that it's now? If it's really the case that the commission didn't do its job, why is it that it's only now you are discussing that? The fact of the matter here is that this commission, what the government is trying to do through their mouthpiece is basically trying to shift responsibility. They've been caught basically sleeping at the wheel. In the most positive spin that you can put here is that they are completely sleeping at the wheel. But as we know, members of that government themselves have been complicit in the corruption that has been uncovered. So here what is happening is that they have been caught in a situation where evidence now has been dug up and shown by an independent investigative reporter to show the wrongs that have been committed during this government by some members of this government. They have no answer to that. So the best they can do is to shift blame.
Blames, yeah.
And now they are trying to spin this narrative
Yeah.
that the commission somehow didn't do its job, or the people who were in the commission, who work with the commission, are from a different political party. But even if you try to spin that narrative, what you are essentially telling the Gambian people is that we as a government, we cannot, something like this, something major, a major part of transitional justice, a commission of inquiry, when it was happening, was such a major event. We could not even be bothered to do proper investigation to make sure that it was done right.
And the spinning will not work because you and I will not accept it. We have platforms, we have voices. We are going to tell the Gambian people what the truth is. The truth is the commission that they are telling us that did not do their job, the report that the Ministry of Justice presented, the list of vehicles that were sold, the list of scrap that was sold, and other personal items of the president, the only list that we saw came from the commission.
Yes.
The sales of the commission, at least we have some list of names, how much they have been bought for.
Exactly.
Whether I agree with the price or not, that came from the commission.
Exactly.
We have seen scraps, there who bought them, tractors, who bought them, the cars, who bought them. We have seen all of that.
Exactly.
And the cattle, that was a court order. It was sold by the sheriff division. The sheriff division is part of government.
Yes.
We have not seen the list. What does this tell us?
Exactly.
The sheriff division is part of the government. We have not seen the detailed list of the sales they have made, but we have seen the detailed list of all the items that was sold through the commission.
Exactly.
What does this tell us? The commission report was more effective. At least we have seen all of the list of people that have bought, even though we don't agree. So you cannot tell us that the commission didn't. No, the commission gave you the details.
Exactly.
But the second thing is, and that is why I keep saying to people, let's forget about the cars and others, the assets. The commission identified 226 properties of the former president and his associates. And later on, we also came to realize that allegedly, Pa Bojang, the president's cousin, came and identified additional properties that were from the former presidents. We don't know how much these properties are. The government never came out and told us these were the additional properties. They never told us. But out of the let's just even say out of the 226, the only list that the government gave us is 44. Out of the 226. The rest, they didn't tell us whether they are sold, I saw something that Ismaila is saying, most of them are kept. How much is kept? How many cars are at the State House? Where are the rest?
Exactly.
You're not giving us numbers, you are just saying some. That is not what we're asking for. We're asking for a total transparency. So if you look at all of this, the commission list we have seen, the sales that were done by the government, we have not seen.
Exactly.
From the properties to the cattle and all that, it was done by the sheriff division. Exactly. Even though under the commission knew about it because they had to go to court because people were stealing the cattle, but it was done by the sheriff division. We have not seen the list of the properties that were sold or allocated, because some of them were allocated, they were not sold to. Who were they allocated to? What was the criteria and why were they allocated to them? These are things that we need to put out and for people to know. Exactly. We cannot be fooled by certain statements because we are able to read and understand. What do you think of,
No, I mean, the point here is obvious to everyone. Yes, like you said, the commission, and as many people rightly raised the issue of some of these items were sold at ridiculous prices, fire sale prices, in fact. So if you can fold the commission, maybe, it would definitely be some of those things, the price just, didn't make any sense. But at least we have a list. Now the government, especially, again, we go to Batambedu, who was Minister of Justice at the time. If the courts, the things that were sold by through the government, we should have a complete list of that. And also what I don't understand is how can this government, in fact, without any sense of shame, talk about some cattle were being stolen. We are talking about cattle located in some central location. Close to which there is a military barracks. There is no shortage of law enforcement officials. Jammeh's places were actually fenced. There is no shortage of places where you could put livestock in the Gambia to actually protect them. What does that tell you about the competence of this government? That people, they actually saying that they had to roast and sell this cattle because they have been stolen. Does that tell, does that tell you that, what does that tell you about the level of responsibility that we have? The fact that you as a government can release that statement without feeling any sense of shame and embarrassment, saying that basically I'm failing, I have to go and sell this cattle because I'm so terrible at doing my job. Would a private individual, be able to get away with such an excuse that some asset has been entrusted to me, I had to rush and sell it because they were being stolen, when you actually have the means of protecting them in some enclosure? This is the government. There is no shortage of facilities where you can put thousands and thousands of livestock. You have law enforcement officers, you have security officers all over the country. At the same time, you have over 7,000 soldiers from outside of the country that are present. How can people be coming and stealing livestock at the former president's facilities?
But even his houses, where are the gold? People said former president had a lot of gold, so he has a lot of precious coins. He had all of these things. These are not reported anywhere to say, this where are they, this is how.
And did we hear anyone being prosecuted or arrested for stealing the cattle?
No.
No attempt was done to investigate. Think about that. If they were serious, they would actually start investigating, say, because some of these cattle are very distinctive.
Someone told me these cattle are from Morocco. They are high maintenance. You could not even maintain them properly here. So these are things that were very pricey, because he didn't even buy those cattle here. They came from Morocco.
So there was no effort done at protecting these things. So at best, if you really want to excuse these people, the best advice you can tell is you can provide for this government is that they are just incompetent. If somebody is very clueless at doing something, you can't really blame them much, because the responsibility you are entrusting upon them is higher than what they can deliver. That's the best. Now, if that's the best excuse you can give to this government, if they want to accept that, well, let them take it. But other than that, it's malicious, basically incompetent or in complicity in corruption. Lack of ethics here and corruption, that's what's involved here.
After 3 days of protest, the president came out and spoke to the Gambian people. Have you seen his address?
Yes.
What do you make of the presidential address?
Well, it's no different.
It was so anticipated.
Yeah, well, again, we have to, just like the list, the president's addressing of Jammeh's asset, if it is true, again, we said that they did not, they were unhappy with the commission's work, and things were wanting from the side of the commission, and they needed to do some redressing of the efforts. They had 6 years to do something about it. During those 6 years, how many times has Adama Barrow spoken about the Jammeh assets, or the way it was handled by the commission, or the way it was handled by various entities? How many times? I can't remember a single time.
No.
This particular addressing wasn't something somebody in a position of responsibility taking their job seriously has done. This is somebody who basically went in front of the nation because he had no choice. They wanted to make sure that this story was buried. So when the youth applied for a permit, they denied it.
Yeah.
No reason to deny it.
No reason.
There was no reason.
Yeah.
No reason to expect any violence. In fact, the youth went there and demonstrated peacefully. They denied it because they wanted to squash this story. They didn't want any transparency on this story. When that failed and those youth bravely went out and protested, then people, public opinion got galvanized. They had no choice. He was forced to go and do that statement. It was almost as if a hostage was standing in front of cameras and delivering something under duress.
Yeah.
That was not a statesman there taking his responsibility seriously. That was somebody under duress who had to stand there and talk because he had no choice. Because the cost of not saying anything was far more than standing there. That was the fact. So just like the government spokesman, there wasn't anything of substance. There wasn't an individual there taking responsibility as he should have.
He said something though.
Yes.
He said that is the first time he's learning about certain sales that happened at the commission.
But what is that telling you? You are the president.
He said that's the first time, but he said one thing that for me that stood out.
Yes.
He defended the ministerial committee. He said the cabinet subcommittee their work was lawful and transparent. These were his exact words in the statement. Lawful and transparent. But for the commission, he said some of the sales, this is the first time he's hearing about them.
Well, he was giving a speech by people who had interest in protecting themselves in the government, and he just went and regurgitated the speech. But basically, that speech by saying that he was basically telling the country that he failed in transitional justice. Because if the ministerial committee has done everything transparently, which is under him because they are in the cabinet, and the commission has done something very wrong, why is it that it took the Republic, a newspaper, after 6 years to reveal that out? Why is it that he did not inform the country about what has been done wrongly by the commission for 6 years? Why did he keep quiet about it?
He didn't know.
But what does that tell you about the fact that whether he's competent enough to serve in the office of the president, in the seat of the presidency? You are sitting in the presidency now for 8 years. 6 years you've been sitting there since this important commission has done its job. It didn't occur to you to ask your Attorney General and Minister of Justice whether the commission that was there at the, constituted at the tune of millions of dollars, whether or not they have discharged their duties.
But in the president's defense, he's advised. The president has legal advisors. He has economic advice. He has all these different people. The the Minister of Justice is the president's advisor when it comes to commission matters. The Minister of Justice, it's his responsibility to properly inform the president. The president cannot read all of these volumes. He has so many better things to do. He would have been advised. The justice minister should have come and gave him a comprehensive report about everything that the commission does. You don't expect the president to read all these volumes. So if the Minister of Justice did not inform him, he wouldn't know. It looks like that's what happened because he said he didn't know, because we all know the sales was in the report. But the president not knowing it, it seems like somebody did not brief him properly.
Well, I definitely will not absolve Batambedu. I definitely agree with you that Batambedu did a terrible job. He's incompetent, he's unethical,
I don't want to
corrupt.
blame, but I don't know who to blame here.
Well,
I'm conflicted in who to blame here, but I don't want to blame the president here.
Well, I will blame the president, and I have a good reason for it.
Okay.
You see, it is true that the president cannot know the details of every sector.
Yeah.
That's why you have cabinet
ministers
appointed in different portfolios. But somebody who should take ultimate responsibility, who makes the ultimate decision in hiring the cabinet ministers. If you do not do a good job of hiring your cabinet ministers and they go and do a terrible job in their ministerial portfolios, and you are still oblivious to how, how corrupt they are, how unethical they are, how incompetent they are, that responsibility falls on you. It's the ultimate responsibility. As they say, the buck stops at the president. The ultimate responsibility here is at the president. Of course, he's not expected to read everything in the Ministry of Education, in Ministry of Health, in Forestry, in Finance, in Legal Affairs. But ultimately, it is his responsibility. It was his decision to appoint Batambedo. It was his decision to appoint all other key people there who are implicated. It was his decision to appoint Mamadou Sabali as advisor.
Yeah, special advisor.
So I actually take issue with the point that the president cannot be blamed. He doesn't know. The president must have been aware of the fact that Mamadou Sabali was adversely mentioned by the commission, and then he was banned from serving in public office. And the government, took a stand to prevent him from standing as a candidate. And yet this president personally made a decision to appoint Mamadou Sabali as his advisor. Does that sound to you like a president who doesn't know a lot of the details about the commission? Here is somebody who he completely had no problem appointing him despite being adversely mentioned by the commission. Are
you saying he's choosing to know what he knows?
Exactly.
And the one that he doesn't want to know?
What is uncomfortable, what is basically inconvenient for him to know, he'll profess ignorance that he doesn't know. It's here. Ousman Cisse, the chief protocol officer, was adversely mentioned by the commission. He was quite aware of that. He disregarded the commission's recommendation and kept him at the State House. Same thing for other cabinet members. So where it was convenient for him, he was aware of it. He couldn't, there's no way the president could say he wasn't aware of the commission's recommendation with regards to people who were appointed by him.
I remember when I interviewed him sometime around 2018 or 19, when I asked him that people are blaming you for hiring people that are implicated in the commission. I think that time I made reference to Mamburinjai. His exact words, Fatou, yalong alkonga luwa noma. Ni ajembe nyung commission obeke ka luwa long. Ni commission operator na recommendation for anybody la mimbe na cabinet ma implement la. I still have that.
Good. So here you have the president going back on his words, which is not the first time. This president has a record of saying one thing and doing the complete opposite of it. So for me, I want to be categorically clear, and I think we in many areas of the world, including in the Gambia, we make this mistake. We say just because the president is not an expert in forestry, in other sectors, he cannot be expected to know all the details. But at the same time, there's a reason why you are the president. The ultimate decisions at the executive level is made in the cabinet, and in that cabinet meeting is chaired by the president. You may not know the details in various sectors, in various ministries, but you should know whether or not some things are right or not, or whether the implementations of he doesn't need to read every volume of the commission's report, but at the very minimum, he needs to task his Minister of Finance, Minister of Justice and Attorney General, and says, this commission of inquiry, this is one of those three key things we are doing in this transitional justice, the TRRC, the Constitution, and these assets. This commission has finished its report. Have they done a good job or not? If they have not done a good job and the government needed to do something, the first hint of that should have been in the white paper. And the 6 intervening years, we should have seen some evidence of the government taking appropriate steps. The fact that we didn't hear anything, their misgivings were not put in the white paper, it means that this government didn't care about that, or at the time, actually, in all reality, they believe what the commission did was largely correct. What they were doing, the ministerial committee and other things, they either couldn't care less, or they were all complicit in it.
But he assured us that after the inquiries by the National Assembly or the National Audit Report, even though we had contacts at the National Audit, they are not doing any special audit on the Janneh Commission issues. They had audited the Janneh Commission. Exactly. What they are doing is auditing the government books for 2021 and 2022. And that includes the sales of sales of the Jane Commission, money. So they will be able to see that, but they are not doing a special audit on this Jane Commission, right?
Yes.
So that is very clear. Until up to this minute, they are not doing it.
Exactly.
Now, I don't know what is going to happen next week or the other week, but they are not. But the president did tell us the audit report, when the audit report is ready, I don't know which one he's talking about, and also when the National Assembly inquiry is ready, he will implement the recommendations. That is a firm promise. He said he's not going to harbor anybody. He'll make sure he will implement. At least that is assuring. The president assured us.
It's an empty promise.
What?
It is an empty promise by the president because, listen to me, I mean, we did a commission of inquiry. What was already a commission of inquiry that cost the country millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And then this whole shenanigans, this wrongdoing followed it. And the people implicated were the Minister of Justice and Attorney General's chambers.
Yeah.
And you want to go and do another special audit, you want to go and do a National Assembly? I have no problem with the National Assembly looking into the actions by the executive. It's appropriate and that they should do.
Yeah.
But let's ask ourselves. Let's say the National Assembly goes and do, by the way, let's not forget that it's this same president who calls audit report just an opinion, huh?
Yes.
Remember, it's this same president. So what would, let's say a special audit has been done into all of these things. Just like other special audits have been done that didn't lead to any action. What will this special opinion, because as far as he's concerned, this is just an opinion. Is this president himself who said that?
Who said, yes, he did.
Now, if the National Assembly goes and does a report and does investigation, let's give them the benefit of the doubt that they do everything correctly. Let's ask ourselves, what are the next expected subsequent steps, right? In order for actual justice things to be done, it has to be the executive basically launching an investigation or initiating some prosecution against some people.
Yeah.
Because the commission is not a prosecuting body, nor is the audit a prosecuting body, or the National Assembly. But this government failed in doing that responsibility for 6 whole years, and nothing prevented them from doing that. We have a lot of audit reports that implicated a lot of people and no actions were taken. So that promise by the president is an empty promise. It's meaningless. Nobody should hold out any hope for it. If there is, if anything was going to happen, and the government was going to take a lead and showing responsibility and making sure that there's transparency and justice, that would have happened over the past 6 years. The fact that it didn't happen means that this government has no seriousness in doing that. And the president's words on this are completely empty.
When I spoke to Mahdi right after the president's speech, and I said, look, at least we should become, President asks us to become, and let him, whenever reports, these reports come from the assembly or the audit report, he will implement. Mahdi was, I mean, this is not what we expect from the president, because here is this. There has been an audit report on the commission that is already there. It's established. Some of the wrongdoings have been established in that audit report.
Exactly.
Because they have asked for certain receipts and certain documentations that were not presented to them. And that report has been lying there, right? If the president, Mahdi, according to Mahdi, if the president is serious about transparency and holding people responsible, he would have given that report and directive to the IGP, the police, to start an investigation on this issue and call all the relevant people and let them come and answer. But instead of, because according to him, the National Assembly doesn't have an actionable, they cannot, after they're investigated, they don't have an action to do. And the audit report is also the same. But the quickest way to do this is give it to the police to do. They have the authorities. But also something that also stood out was the Auditor General, the former Auditor General, Karamba Toure. He gave an interview to the Standard newspaper and said, the National Assembly, let's forget about all the political issues, because a lot of us, even speaking to Mustafa Kedabo, the Republic, they have done, the National Assembly was doing series of investigations before this. But sometimes when they see the directions of their investigations, they know where it is going, they delay it. We have all seen that the political tax has been played. The Russian oil saga. When the Republic came out and did a story and he was pointing out to the State House, the National Assembly investigation have delayed indefinitely.
Exactly.
We don't know where it is right now. What makes, some people are saying, what makes you believe that this one will not be the same?
Exactly.
But we still give them the benefit of the doubt.
Well, I mean, I'll give the benefit of the doubt, but let's say, you know, somebody has been coming into your house. Every time they come, they steal. The second time they come, they steal. Third time they come, they steal. The fourth time they come, I mean, I think you'll be justified in chasing them from your compound. I mean, if I come and say, oh, you know, give him the benefit of that, maybe this time he will not steal.
Yeah.
Would you, should you listen to me?
No, I will say,
No. I mean, so here, you've just established a pattern of behavior where the government doesn't show any seriousness about investigating things, where when people are complicit or are implicated, who are close to power, who are close to the State House, close to the presidency, these investigations don't go anywhere. Or even when the audit report does some things like the security report and other things, when they've done investigations and they find that the implications and the people who are implicated are very close to the power, at the top of the government, nothing happens. Here we know from this investigative report by Mustafa Dabo that, you know, you have the people implicated include not only the Minister of Justice and Attorney General, but also, in fact, even people close to the President. You think it will be any different from the other ones? I don't think so. The question here is, why is it taking 6 years? Why is it taking a report by an investigative journalist? You know, to bring this, to prod the government into action. If it is truly the case that they are responsible, they care about justice and the truth, this should have happened in the past 6 years. If they are aware of it and they couldn't do anything about it, they are basically telling people that they are incompetent, they cannot run the government, and the best thing that they can do is come to the Gambian people and fess up. It's one or the other two. Either you know the truth, what has happened, and if you close your eyes to it because it was inconvenient or you were complicit, or you knew what was happening, you couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
But as a government, is that the position you want to take? So these are the two possibilities. Let them choose one. But the idea that a new investigation will happen again after the country has spent millions in the commissions of inquiry is just a delaying tactic. The government wanted to cover this thing up. For 6 years, they were hoping it would go away. It did not. When these brave youth went out and protested, they did everything to squash it. They couldn't. It is now becoming the topic of conversation. Now, to quiet things down, they are engaging in another delaying tactic. Let's do another commission by National Assembly. Who knows how long that will take? And then when that report eventually comes out, the government will look at things because that would be another mere opinion, according to this president. Yeah. So I think the Gambian people, I don't think, can be fooled here. You know, if anybody prefers to bury their head in the sand, you feel free to go ahead. Go ahead. But here, looking at the pattern of behavior here, this government here is not serious about looking into these asset problems because they are complicit in it and they have no interest in seeking the truth and in pursuing justice.
We have not seen any member of government's name on the list that so far have been released. Even though properties have not been, the list of properties, we haven't seen that.
Yes.
But the sales of the cattle, we haven't seen.
Well, you see, people are corrupt and incompetent, but they're also not fools. Not many of them are not going to be idiotic enough to go and have their own names in there. Yeah. So, as in the case of Batam Bedu, he didn't go and put his name on any of those things. What did he do? He benefited from his actions indirectly by ensuring that somebody else's names appeared on these records that didn't feature his name directly. But it doesn't mean he didn't benefit, because the person who he ensured got some benefit from this was somebody later ended up marrying. So who is to say that even the members of the Ministerial Committee didn't benefit? We don't know, because a proper investigation never happened. Yes. There have been reports that Ahmad Ba himself bought some cattle. That needed to be investigated.
But Ahmad denied those allegations.
He denied it, but that is a denial. Yeah. Fine. Let there be a proper investigation. Let there be a proper investigation for it.
Yeah, we need to see the list of the sales of especially the cattle. And I like I said, that was done through the sheriff court.
Yeah.
And the
other minister who was mentioned here has been involved in all sort of land transactions. That's Drame.
The minister, former minister of land.
Yes, he's been involved in all sort of lands. And some of them were actually major pieces of newspaper articles. So again, let there be proper investigation.
Should we ask for a comprehensive list of all allocations that were made from 2017? I think that is what is going to give us a clear picture of who was allocated, when were they allocated, what was the process.
If you can do it, you will never get it
because
from this
I think that is what the government should do. To be transparent, give us a true picture of all the land that was allocated from 2017 to date. Yeah. People like us who don't have any connection, I have never had an allocation my entire life. And you should consider that I am connected. I know people direct in government. I had access to people, ministers. But I don't think I am connected enough to have a land allocation.
I can tell you, when you try to go through a proper process.
Somebody saw me at the ministry actually this day and he was asking me, and I also said, in my head, no, I belong to this country. I can go to any ministry.
No, it is State House.
Na benta Ministry of Local Government and Land. I'm following one of my leases. My lease follow up because Gambia you have to follow your documents.
Yeah, of
course. Follow
I have a document there that's still pending.
So I went there. I was there and I met him. He said, Fatou, when I said that question, the topic changed.
Good.
Because obviously I'm a Gambian, I can go to any ministry and do that. And that was so baffling for me. But this is the issue. Unless the government gives us a comprehensive list of all land that was allocated by government to individuals and businesses, I mean, the truth is there's a land policy. People should be allocated and government should allocate lands. But if Yahya Jammeh's properties that were sold, that were acquired, and government and the commission made serious recommendations, lands that were acquired through people, if Yahya Jammeh had seized Dr. Gajigo's land, and Dr. Gajigo is interested in buying the land today, make sure you give him opportunity to buy it off, but with current market price. This is what the commission said. He said the parks and the islands and all these ones, make sure you give it to, you reserve that for the country. And then other properties, there are places that we could reserve for parks and other things and playgrounds for kids. They made detailed recommendation on issues, how these lands should be disposed of. But that recommendation was not fully. So we have seen lands being allocated. Zainab, there was this land that was leased to Zainab Yahya Jammeh, the former First Lady. Yeah. I have seen properties just after Senegambia, where the King Baker and all those areas are. Yes. I have seen that land being developed. Yes. How did those lease, what process were taken to allocate to other individuals? Yes. From somewhere around between Dream Park and that stretch, those lands were leased to the Kanilai family farms. But today, lands have been developed in that area. Between Palmarima and Jembe, they have been allocated. Who are they allocated to? What was the criteria? We have nothing against those people that are being allocated, to be fair, because maybe they applied, their businesses, they went through a process. Yes. But we want to know, how was it done? Exactly. How is it that Dr. Gajigo and Fatou Toure are not qualified? Exactly. But Mustafa Dabo and somebody else is qualified. This is government policy. It needs to be transparent. And that's what we want to know about the entire 226 properties that the Ghana Commission recommended, identified. Yep. We need detailed information on that.
Indeed. No, I mean, listen, in anything involving the government, even if these were not Jammeh assets, the process should be transparent. Yeah. Because you are dealing with national assets. Let's say these were in fact not part of, they were not assets forfeited from Jammeh. Government doing something like this, all the details should be accessible to people. If you needed to find out a particular public land that was later converted to private use, this is something in a democratic government where accountability is present. This should be there. But more so in this case, where you are coming from many years of dictatorship, The president engaged in many activities, a lot of them shady, some of them expropriation of private asset.
Yeah.
When those assets now have been, forfeited by the state, a main, there has been a whole national discussion about having a proper transitional justice. A major commission of inquiry has been set up. Those assets needed to get very special degree and level of transparency.
Yeah.
This is what has been lacking here. And we now know, given the details that has been revealed, we now know why it was not just some oversight. It was some, it was calculated efforts at hiding nefarious activities that were taking place. So I totally agree with you. I'll join your call in asking the government to release all of these details.
Yeah.
Am I hopeful it will happen? I have zero hope. Because they will be implicated and they will not do it. They will engage in diversionary and stall tactics for as long as they can.
Well, this is public. We have the Access to Public Information, Access to Information Act. We should be able to ask for certain leases and have access.
People have used that. I can give you an. People have used that to ask for information on many public things. To date, they have not received anything.
So what's the point of the Access to Information Commission?
Again, a diversionary tactic. You can go and ask for many things and they will not go. When it is inconvenient, they won't provide it.
They won't provide it.
Yes.
Now, the reason why a lot of us believe the president came out, it was to speak to us, was the 3 days of protest by the Gala youths. They came out. All they asked for was accountability. Release the list, release the list, release the list. And the police arrested them. I saw something interesting that Mar Nyang posted on his Facebook. Every anti-corruption protest that was requested from the police office, the IGP has rejected.
Yes.
Every anti-corruption. But other protests have been approved.
Exactly.
Why do you think the government is so adamant in having to hear from its citizens when it comes to anti-corruption issues?
Because up to the highest level of the government, they are complicit in corruption. They don't want transparency in it. They will be implicated. This is what we found in this investigative report. They wanted to bury this, want people to forget about it. So when they couldn't do that, when they couldn't succeed, the president had no choice. Like I said, his appearance in front of camera was like a hostage under duress. He had no choice. Staying silent would have been far more costly for him politically. That's why he came out and spoke. Not because he wanted to reveal what happened, but because he had no choice. So the government, through the IGP, has been systematically and consistently denying protests for one and only one reason. Because those protests they are going to shed light on things they would rather prefer to remain buried. They are not interested in transparency. They are not interested in truth. What they want to do is keep things buried, protect complicit and corrupt officials. And this corruption has reached to the highest level of the government, including the State House.
Now, the young people, 27 of them were arrested. And what really stood out for me was this. When they started arresting them, if they near killing arrest them, they were not arrested, they were not scared. And that is very, very worrying and scary.
Exactly.
Police exactly. But today, it's a law. Exactly. And it galvanized the entire youth population. If you are at Westfield, you'll be worried. Even when they went to engage them, they said, we are not leaving until our people are released. All of them. Until, in fact, we're not asking for them to be released. We want them to be released and brought to us here. And the government just did just that. They had to, do what the youths wanted. The president came out and he said, and my thing is, okay, this has been the case in Sirif Mahmoud's case.
Exactly.
The orders from the Santolo Kabiri, we pointed fingers to the State House. They said the president has no role in this. But Kabiri Sirif Nyola case dropped. They had to go to negotiate at State House. Exactly. What is this telling us? Are we back to square one? from where directives have to come from higher office for the police to implement, and then when they want them to reverse, it has to come there again. Exactly. This is what people fought for to be able to get to 2026. Exactly. Are we back to square one, Dr. Gajigo?
No, things have not changed. So, but going back to your initial part again, I also noticed that the youth who were going to protest, they were not scared of being arrested.
Yeah.
And in fact, and they knew the arrest was unlawful, and they saw it as a badge of honor to be detained for doing something right. What does that tell you? It means that unlike these government officials, the senior level, including those in the president's own cabinet who are sitting in their position just for money and the salaries they get, and the positions and the titles they get, these youth actually believe in a higher cause. And when you are fighting for a higher cause, elements of these corrupt regimes don't scare you. In fact, to be arrested by corrupt and incompetent and through illegal tactics is actually a badge of honor. If anything, it validates what you are doing, because it shows that no matter what the cost is, you are willing to go and sacrifice your freedom for a very for a cause that is more than just that just goes beyond you as a person. So for me, that was a very powerful image to see, and I think something like that, because this, why it scares the government is that these are people, unlike Cisse and Sabali, these people cannot be bought. They cannot be intimidated by a few arrests. Even if we give them money, they will not. I know some of those youth have even been contacted by people in the president's party and others, but what they don't realize is these people are not like them. There are people in this country also, despite the preponderance, not the preponderance, despite the large number of people who are into politics or in government for transactional reasons, for their personal benefit, there are still people in these countries who believe in a higher good, who believe in something that, who are patriotic at heart. And this is the example of what we've seen with these youth. Going back to your latter part about what is happening here, the president actually said, Ebola. Now, you should ask yourself, if you are telling them now to release those people, no, then you have to take responsibility for their arrest in the first place. Then we have the right to ask you, were the police wrong in denying them permit, and were they wrong in arresting them? If that is the case, if you are telling them to be released, and the police were wrong in denying them permit and arresting them, then what is the consequence, the repercussion on the police, the IGP and the police officers? Or the IGP, I won't say the police officers because they are following orders, but the IGP or the Minister of Interior, the people who are supposed to be involved in making those decisions about denying the permit, what is the consequences they are going to face for denying people their constitutional right to protest peacefully? Because those people didn't plan on and didn't do any destruction of property, didn't disrupt anything. The things only got out of hand when they were denied what was their constitutional right. And you are absolutely correct that here we are seeing a repeat of something that we thought we had gone beyond. If somebody wants to protest against this, what is wrong with, we just had a big music festival on Caraba Avenue. The stage wasn't dismantled until 3 p.m. on Monday. That was a bigger disturbance of public order in our most important financial street. That road was blocked until 3 p.m. on Monday. Those people, the demonstration that the Gala youth wanted to make that day, was it going to have the same degree of disruption as a stage, unassembled stage on Caraba Avenue? No, because you prevented that. Your government, your IGP, acting on information they got, whether it was formal information or through some understanding, some unspoken or written understanding, they actively prevented the march of youth who were trying to do their something that is permissible constitutionally. Yet you prevented that. And you stand before the nation trying to seem magnanimous by saying that you asked the police to release them. Now, if they didn't do anything wrong, then there should be consequences for them being arrested, detained, and denied their constitutional right.
The irony, though, is this. On Thursday, when they went out to protest, They were the first people they arrested were even less than 20. They had not started protesting. They were just sitting there waiting for their colleagues, and they got arrested, taken away in the second batch and the third batch. But the following day, on Friday, when they went to Westfield, they did not have a permit. There were more people.
Exactly.
But the police instead accompanied them, even though they did not have a permit.
Yes.
On Saturday, there were even bigger crowds
Exactly.
in Westfield, in Brikama, and somewhere in Sanyang. Exactly. Again, no permit.
Yes.
The police did not arrest them.
Yeah.
But you arrested them on Thursday.
Yes. So what does that tell you? That you were arresting these people before that? Because now it becomes clear why they denied the permit and why they arrested. They want to squash this thing. They wanted the conversation about all of these assets, how they were illegally disposed of, the questionable roles of senior government officials. They wanted everything swept under the rug. The president coming out, this parliamentary committee being set up, or whatever they are going to ask the national audit to do, these are all things that they are doing under duress. Their hands have been forced. Just like when I brought up my issue on the Senegambia bridge, they didn't want any details of that. Our that incompetent Minister of Finance, Mr. Sidi Keita, they wanted everything buried. But it was only after I, over a series of interviews and articles, I brought out all the horrendous things that they put in that contract. They were forced to release the contract. But even then, people should know, they didn't release all the documents I told them, I insisted upon. The key document that is still out there that they should be releasing is the financial model, because that financial model would show that the amount of money we are losing in that bridge, the value of that is more than the value of every single road constructed by Adam Barrow since he came to power.
Oh my God.
So again here, they will just give sufficient, they'll do sufficient set of actions to try to quell public anger, and then hope that another event would come and people will forget about this. So this National Assembly committee that's going to work, or whatever additional action the president has promised, it is just a diversion. Once these things quiet down, they'll completely forget about it. So people shouldn't have any expectation that anything would happen, because for 6 years, nothing happened.
Nothing happened. And this whole saga, though, especially the commission, what really saddens me, you said it earlier, how they're trying to politicize some of it. For example, and I tell people, I don't even know how Ami Bensouda became the center of all of this, because it is the Jane Commission, right? That's the name. The Jane Commission, meaning Surahata Jane is the head of the commission. He's the boss of all the people there. And there have been over 5 commissioners. I don't remember how many. Some of them I still don't even know I don't know their names. But it looks like at some point now, the center is all revolving around one person. And a lot of people believe because that is politics. And this is our problem in this country. Instead of looking at where the problem is, it's like, who do I agree with politically and who do I not agree with politically? To the point we always miss the point. Because I said this to somebody, the commissioners, the secretary of the commission was hired by the president. The commissioners, it was through National Assembly and recommendation, blah, blah, blah. The president, the Minister of Justice, everybody in the commission, they were clients of the Gambia government. They were working for the Gambia government. Indirectly, this commission is the commission of the Gambia government. Now, if the Gambia government itself is saying that they had issues with the commission, people that they hired, people that they oversaw their work and approved it and took recommendations from their work, today they're telling us a different story, says a lot. And, I have seen also where people have said the commissioners should come out and defend. I have seen Batambedu said the commission did an amazing job and they handed over everything. He said that on a Star TV interview. Now, and I think a lot of us also believe that the commission did their part. It was the next step that was not properly done. Now, the thing is, somebody was saying to me, for ethical reasons, the commissioners were working on behalf of for the government, and they handed over their work to the government. If the government ever had any issues with their work, the government should have relayed that to the commission. or whatever, or take legal actions or investigations on their work. But that never happened. Who should we hold accountable here? Should we politicize this? Because this is what's happening right now. It looks like this is the debate. Instead of us focusing on what the Republic uncovered and the processes, who did what, now it has turned over to be this political battle that we have seen now, especially on social media.
Well, I mean, it's not surprising it's become a political battle, because here is something that is going to be something very harmful to the current government.
Yeah.
So obviously all their political allies and are going to find a way to try to blunt its impact, or if possible, try to basically shift the blame onto other people.
Yeah.
And as partisan individuals, the easiest thing for that is to look for another political party. For that to, I mean, one thing that might help them in this case, that the Attorney General who was actually implicated is no longer in government. So they have been very quiet,
not defending him
him
directly,
yeah, because
but defending the cabinet subcommittee,
exactly,
which he was part of.
He was part of, but they only defending that because there are two of those members are still existing members of the cabinet.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yes.
That's the only reason. But believe me, if that was if all of those members of that committee are no longer in government, they wouldn't even be defending that. Yeah. So right now, the only thing they are doing is making sure that the blame is shifted away from the government. And the easiest way to do that is, they will not come out directly and blame Batambedu, though is quite complicit here. Their hope would be for all the blame to be on Batambedu and other people, as if they are just innocent bystanders, instead of being the government that should take central responsibility here. Yeah, it just shows you the level of, the abdication of responsibility that these people are demonstrating here, that they don't even have a sense of shame and embarrassment to try to push this sort of argument, as if they have been sleeping at the wheels, So here, I mean, it is sad, but not unexpected that it has become partisan. I mean, it's something that should be expected, that the president and his supporters will want to shift the blame to anyone that is not in government and that is not NPP.
Wow.
Yeah, so that is to be expected. The thing, though, that we, the general public, should bear in mind is that here we have a situation where this very government, whether or not the cabinet member implicated is in the government or not, but the person who appointed him, who has ultimate responsibility, is still heading the country.
The buck stops with the president.
Yes. And to the extent that things that needed to be done by this government didn't take place, that responsibility still rests with this current government. The current government is still the same government, irrespective of the identity or the changes in the ministerial posts, in their individual posts. That doesn't change the fact that you have a government headed by Adama Barrow that has been in power since 2017. And that government has failed the country in many ways, but it's particularly in this case by not implementing the Janneh Commission. Again, like I said, I don't have the authority and the background to to say whether or not Janneh Commission did its job 100%. But from a layman perspective, as far as I think they did it well, that reasonable questions can be raised about the value that they got for certain assets they did. I think that one is a legitimate question.
That's a very legitimate question.
Yes, and but in terms of doing the investigation, digging, bringing things to light, documenting things, providing the government with clear recommendations, I think we can commend them for doing that. The entity here that has failed us is Adama Barrow and his government. And he has to carry that responsibility. And his performance after the youth protest is just, it's a way of shifting blame. And, I don't think the Gambian people will be fooled. And I've spoken to some of those youth people who have listened to it. None of them are fooled. They all know what the government is trying to do, what President Barrow is trying to do. They are trying to shift blame to others, and they are not taking responsibility.
Minister Demba Sabali's statement, did it help in any way to say that, did you hear his statement?
But repeat it for the audience.
ako politician on me along ko ita kata katindingol ke inside.
Yes.
Rohimalik law. Ako ni nga taraje ba handcuff la nga fay nga muta. Esa fal fana ni ataraje ba handcuff la.
Yes.
Yeah. Basically, that's what he said.
Well,
to paraphrase it.
I think Demba Sabal is, if you want to talk about...
But he sounded very angry, though.
Well...
Because they were not happy
I couldn't care if Demba Sabal was angry or not because he's a comical figure. I mean, if you want an, somebody who epitomizes incompetence and lack of responsibility for their portfolio, you will have no better candidate than Demba Sabal. If you look at Demba Sabali's public pronouncement over the past couple of months, they are all completely political in nature, including this comment on this youth demonstration, his comment against Yankuba Dabo in Brikama Area Council.
Yes.
But here is Demba Sabali, who is the Minister of Agriculture. Do you know, to this date, we are in late May, there are still farmers in the Gambia who didn't get their payment for their groundnut.
Up to May.
Up to now, from last year.
From last year payment.
Yes. We have, it's not only groundnut, we have rice farmers in the, even in CRR, that whose rice the government took and they didn't receive payment. We have people in the Gambia here, women who want to work in women garden, who don't have basic things like borehole, don't have water to water their vegetables, who don't have a proper fence. We have thousands and thousands of tons of vegetables that are rotting on a daily basis because proper cold storage is not there. Our agricultural productivity in rice is the lowest in ECOWAS. Our groundnut production that we are having currently on the Adama Barrow is less than half of what we had on the Yaya Jammeh. Groundnut production, annual groundnut production. The average annual groundnut production on the Yaya Jammeh was about 99,000 tons per year. On the Adama Barrow is less than 50,000 tons per year. So here we have this Minister of Agriculture. He has nothing to say about the state of agriculture, about what the government is doing, whether things are improving or not. He has nothing to address the farmers in Badibu, in Fuladu, and other parts that were not able to receive the payments for their ground from last season. Yet, this guy would go and say such nonsensical things about arresting political opponents at a rally. The question is, if they did something illegal, arrest them. But if the president himself, just a moment ago, as we pointed out, was saying that he ordered the release of the youth protesters, what is the Minister of Agriculture, not even Minister of Interior and other things, Minister of Agriculture opining about on political matters? Why don't you go and talk about what is happening in the agricultural sector? We all know, but it's not surprising Demba Sabali is doing this. Everyone who knows Demba Sabali very well, whether as a young man, whether as his time in Madison or his time here, Demba Sabali knows absolutely nothing about agriculture. Absolutely nothing. Demba Sabali is in the government for one and only one reason, because he defected from GDC and came. So as far as Barrow is concerned, he's a political feather cap. Just like Mahmoud Sabali defected. It doesn't matter their competence or what terrible things they did or how unqualified they are. As long as they defected from one political party, they are welcome. So Demba Sabali is welcome purely as a political pawn. And he's doing that job very well because instead of going out there, even pretending he knows something about agriculture, he's doing the job the president brought him into cabinet for, which is one and only one reason, for political reason. So he's making political pronouncement. The only people who are poorer for that is the Gambian people. We are the ones suffering for it, for having to endure an incompetent person like Demba Sabali be in charge of an important portfolio like agriculture.
Well, that's deep. That's sad. If that's how we run the affairs of this country.
It's the reality, unfortunately. It is the reality. We have to face it.
Wow. Now, all of these things happen. When the report, the part I don't like talking about, because that has to deal with us, the media, ourselves. When Mustafa released this statement, when he released this report, the media council, I remember a few days we were talking, he told me that he was going to meet the media council. They requested to meet him. And he was going to, and I asked, did BA officially complain, because that's the procedure.
Yes.
Because we have all gone to the media council. At that point, he didn't know. Bah did not complain. Mustafa went to meet, but surprisingly, they told him to go to meet at the Human Rights Commission. Which was surprising, because I don't remember the chairman of the Human Rights Commission being part of the media council.
Okay. He's not part of the media?
Not. No, he's not. Emily is the chair, and Babakar, and then they have other members, Ablai Fati and others, who are members of the council, but Emily is not. I don't remember. He is not. So, and I do know that, but Mustafa didn't know at the time that he was going to meet with Emily, and he knew he was meeting. He went.
Council, okay.
Now, right after the meeting, and I checked on with him, exactly what GPU wrote, that's what he told me. And he told me, this is what they told me. They told me they haven't seen, that I have not implicated Bah in the story, but the perception of what people thought Bah was implicated in the story. And his response was, I cannot control what the perception is. What people think of our story is not our problem. Now, according to what he told me then, even before this came out, was they had asked that they issue a joint statement with Bah to say, he said, because, and one of the things, to say that
who should issue a joint statement with Bah?
Republic and Bah should issue a joint statement to say that the story did not implicate Bah. They should say the timing of they didn't tell him his story was not factual.
Exactly.
That, let's be honest, they didn't tell him that. They didn't mention the story was not factual, but they were concerned that it came out at a time when Bah was, Bah's new job application at the CICJ was coming up. And they were also asking that, they were telling him that some people were insinuating that somebody paid him. So he told me this. So when, he told me, and I was like, I was really sad that if that is coming, and I just couldn't. But, the people that he mentioned that were in the meeting, I have known.
Yes.
I have known Emily, very great guy. Babakar Cham is like an uncle to all of us in the media. Emmanuel Jouve, Human Rights Commission, I've known him since I was 18 when I was at GRTS. Very upright guy, So I was shocked to my core. And for me, the first question that I asked was, number one, we have dealt with the media council. If the media council comes in when somebody reports that your work had, you have done something that was not unethical, you have misinterpreted their facts, and they want you to retract, apologize, or they will take you to court. So the media council will intervene. But in this instance, at that point, I didn't know that the Bah had filed any complaints against Mustafa. But also when we dealt with the media council, there was no time that the Human Rights Commission was ever involved. Yes, we all have issues, and we will write to the commission. When the president called us out, we wrote to the Human Rights Commission. Unfortunately, we didn't get any response from them, but we did write to them. So that is their role. For if your rights are infringed, you talk to them. But I didn't know how they were involved in this. And to be honest, to be fair to the commission, Mustafa did not say the Human Rights Commission itself. He spoke about the chairman.
The chair.
And that's why I was shocked when I saw the Human Rights Commission statement, and I said it in our program. This was not about the Human Rights Commission. We are not doubting your competence or whatever that you were telling us to be assured of. We're talking about somebody claiming that your chairman was involved in this meeting and said this and this and this. And then later on, obviously, the chairman also came and clarified. The media council also denied all of those allegations. It's a hearsay. Who do you believe and who?
But there was no denial the meeting took place.
Yes, the meeting took place.
There was no denial who was involved in the meeting.
No, there was no denial. There was no denial. So what's your take on all of these things? It's a little...
Yeah. Well, I mean, of course, none of us are, this is a private meeting. We were not there. So I'll talk about this at some general level.
Yeah.
The principle mediating between two different individuals, I mean, if there's a misunderstanding, that principle is sound. There's nothing wrong with that. After all, we cannot settle every dispute in court. The courts will come to a standstill. most of the things that happen between private individuals, either it is resolved bilaterally between them, or there would be a third party that would mediate between them.
Yeah.
So in principle, there is nothing wrong with trying to mediate. But I am uncomfortable with this particular meeting, and I'll tell you why. First of all, if it is true that they said Ba wasn't implicated in this story, and there's perception of it, that I disagree. Ba was implicated, and as I pointed out, this story has shown that what he did was unethical and corrupt. I believe he was implicated. So people are drawing that conclusion because of the factual things being brought. Now, if there are things that have been reported that are factually wrong, and they wanted a retraction, their statement would have indicated that. But from what I understand, nobody is claiming that what Mustafa Dabo wrote in the story was factually wrong.
Wrong, yeah.
So the conclusion that people are drawing from the report, reasonable conclusion based on facts presented there. You know, so nobody, as far as I know, you know. But the issue here is why Ba here? Why is Ba specifically important here? Every day there are reports being done where certain public officials are mentioned. You know, is it the role, does the Media Council have this role where they consistently bring together an investigative reporter to try to make a joint statement with a subject of their reporting? Is this something that is this part of their responsibility? Is it something that they do consistently for almost everyone? What is special about Ba Tambadou here? That's the question I want to know. This is why I'm very uncomfortable here. What is so special about Ba Tambadou?
I mean, number one, they said the timing, Mustafa said they told him the timing of the story. Ba is, you know, Gambia endorsed him for this job.
So what?
So the timing could
affect
his
At any given
chances.
point in time, there are Gambians applying for international position. Is it the responsibility of organs of the state or institutions in the Gambia to make sure that we kill all negative story about them so that they get that position? I worked at the World Bank, at the UN, at ADB. At any point in time, did I come here for people to make sure that any negative story about me to be killed? I didn't have to because there was none. What was important is whether what Mustafa Dabo wrote, whether it's true or not. If it was false, and they pointed out a factual error, and then he was also retracted, that is a different matter. But the fact that whether or not Ba Tambadou is applying for a position at an international institution is not more important than the squandering of nations' assets that are worth millions and millions of dollars. Is Ba Tambadou's personal professional advancement more important than the issue of transparency in the country? One person's profession. When Ba Tambadou goes there, he's going there as not a representative of the Gambia government. He's there. It's for his professional advancement. He's there as an individual.
He's there as a Gambian too, representing, because we nominate him. We endorse his nomination.
No. If a board member at any of these institutions, when you go, you can be nominated. But once you are there, you are not a representative of your country.
Okay.
The president of ADB will be nominated by his home country. UN, any of these specialized UN agencies.
Like the ECOWAS president?
Yes, ECOWAS. And any of these specialized UN agencies, whether UNDP, FAO, World Food Program, before you can get those positions, your nation state, a member state has to nominate you. It's a standard thing. But once you assume that position, you are there, your primary responsibility, you are there as spelled out in your terms of reference. You are not there to represent one country. Every country that is a member of that body, you are representing them all equally. So, but there is nothing wrong with the government endorsing any citizen for any position. If they are the most qualified you can find, yes. But if an issue comes up in the country that is of national importance, why should that be quieted down for the benefit of one individual? This is where I have a problem with it. If they had a factual issue that they saw in there, then let them bring it to the attention of Mustafa Dabo and he would retract. But as far as I'm concerned, no factual error has been identified. Now, if people are interpreting it in a way that is unfair to him, it was his responsibility not to be engaged in anything that raised questions about his integrity. So here, to actually have a meeting where a pressure is put on an investigative reporter to come out and make a statement for the benefit of individual, you are basically trying to say that individual's professional interest to trump the national interest of the country, where millions of dollars is, where the issue of justice and transitional justice and transparency and truth are basically being made victim so that one individual can benefit. That I find very troubling. Yeah. So for me, I think all the people who raise concerns about that, those are valid concerns. Because, I mean, it's an issue of consistency. There's nothing special about Batambedu. Do they do this for every subject of investigative reporting?
Would you agree that just before coming to this interview, somebody said to me, you guys are treating Ba very unfairly. This is the man, when we came out of dictatorship, helped us to set up the transitional justice system. TRRC was set up. The Commission of Inquiry was set up. He helped set up the CRC, the commission. He said to me, this is man who set up the transitional justice system. The Commission of Inquiry helped with the setting up of the commission, the CRC for us to have a good constitution, and even help us lead to be able to go to Rohingya and fought, and we had a lot of recognition. He left a very lucrative job to come and serve as Attorney General, helped us set up the foundation for a new democracy. Coming from 22 years of dictatorship was difficult. Now, after everything he has done to put us in this footing, today he's going through all of this and nobody is coming to his defense. To that person, what do you say? This is what somebody told me just before coming on this interview. And I was like, okay, you know, that is a very good reminder that you're telling me this. You know, maybe we should also remember that he took us as Justice Minister at a very crucial position. And yes, just like any other human being, we all make mistakes in processes. But should we also be fair to Batambedu and give him his flowers for some of the things he have done for this country?
Well, I'm all for being fair to people. In fact, even to Batambedu, we need to be fair, but we need to be clear about what that fairness entails. Okay. Fairness means, you know, commending people for things they are responsible for. If it is good, we commend them. Basically, attributing them to things that they have been responsible for. Good things, you commend them. Things that are not so good, you make it quite clear that what they've done is wrong. I've heard this narrative that's going around, you know, and I think Batambedu is probably thinks people have a short memory or they are idiots. Batambedu, yes, he had a very, he could have been a pivotal figure in this country.
Could have been.
Could have been. Was he? Not in any positive way I can think of. This is why let's go to the issue of transitional justice. You know, there are three key things in there. You have the Jane Commission, CRC, the TRRC. Yeah. Let's look at one by one. The Jane Commission we've talked about, you know, adequately enough. I don't need to go over that. The recommendations were not taken on board, and he was still, as far as I remember, he was still Attorney General at the time. Did he come out with a statement saying that we set this thing up, it's done a good job, here is recommendation, but unfortunately the government didn't do his recommendation. Did Batambedu made any statement about his displeasure or his unhappiness with the fact that the Jane Commission's recommendations were not taken on board? Did he make any statement? I am not aware of it. It's a rhetorical question. I'm not aware. He didn't make it.
I'm not aware.
The CRC, they spend millions traveling all over the place to other parts of the country. Where is the new constitution?
To his defense, he left before it was presented at Parliament. Good. It was Dauda, and I have always said this, and that was always my defense, to say Ba was a better justice minister. If he was him, we would have had a constitution. He would have defended with passion.
I'm not
Dauda
sure.
did not.
Well, the question is whether or not it was not passed when Dauda was there.
Yeah.
the fact of the matter is there is no new constitution.
No, there's not.
So how can you take credit for something that didn't happen? So it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Now let's come to the TRRC. They've also done a commendable job. They've done recommendations. What has happened post the TRRC? There is still time for things to happen, but as of now, this is a classic case of somebody who is trying to take credit for certain actions that have been taken, but that have not led to any concrete results. So in the Janneh Commission, in CRC, in the TRRC, what matters? It does matter that those activities have been initiated, but what did they lead to? The conclusion of the Janneh Commission happened in his presence. Now, what he would do in CRC, that is a matter for speculation. It's we can discuss that in what would have happened in an alternative universe. But in the case of Janneh Commission that we are discussing today, when that thing came out, if he wasn't happy about it, he was in better position than anyone in the government to say what the Janneh Commission did wasn't right and we are unhappy for this and this reason. But from what I understand, if he's already putting it in his resume sort of to say that he did it, so he was happy with it, why didn't he make a statement during when he was in government or after he left that things that needed to be done by the government, they failed the Gambian people? I would have a lot more credibility and much more sympathy for his position if he had made a statement like that. He did not. So going beyond those two, go to the Rohingya case, I wrote a couple of articles about that.
Yeah, you did.
A lot of people were talking about, oh, what Batambedu did was great. You know, he's putting the Gambian name out.
Yeah.
Nonsense. It was of no benefit to the Gambian people. That was only Batambedu padding his resume for future international positions. I want to be blunt about this.
Well, we had some name recognition as being the country that led that fight.
And what has that benefited the Gambia?
Recognition.
What has that recognition benefited the Gambia? Since that recognition and now, what has that done to the issue of justice, to the issue of corruption, to the price of rice and price of sugar, to youth unemployment? What has that done for the Gambia? If you can't afford food in your compound, then you have a naming ceremony. You go and borrow money and slaughter a bull just so that people talk about how great it is. Hey, you know, Karila Kulio de Arabi, you know, Yinsole from Faji, Yes, you get that name recognition. What has that benefited your family? The only one who has benefited from this Rohingya case is Batambedu in two ways. He actually got financial compensation for it. Beyond his salary, he got financial compensation for it, and he also got name recognition that he used for future positions. Batambedu didn't sacrifice any career to come here. Coming as Attorney General was an investment in his professional growth. The position Batambedu left was a P4. It wasn't a management level. It was P4. He left, he came here, became Attorney General. That padded his resume significantly. Of course, like people who didn't know told them that he was responsible for transitional justice and other things, as he's trying to claim right now. Of course, he can't claim that. Everybody knew, coming from a dictatorship, a commission of inquiry, things, human rights abuses, a new constitution. These were things that were going to happen irrespective of the identity of the Attorney General or the Minister of Justice. Batambedu or anyone else who, you know, it doesn't matter who was appointed, these things would have been initiated. Whether, now the question is how well they would have been implemented, as we have seen, not always great, but whether or not they would happen, that had nothing to do with Batambedu. So the Rohingya case here, it hasn't benefited the Gambia, because I'm telling you, legal reform, let's ask a question here. Does the Gambia need a legal reform after a 20 years dictatorship? Of course we do. A poor country, a country with limited capacity at the Ministry of Justice, do we have the capacity bandwidth, to be doing the reforms that we need in the country at the same time leading an issue that is in another continent? Did we need our Minister of Justice and Attorney General to have divided attention between the issues of transitional justice here and some case that is in a different continent? Nobody is saying that the Rohingya case did not need to be addressed. It's a very tragic violation of human rights. But there are many countries I can name that are in far better position to lead that case. This was the first few years of a transitional regime. What we needed was all hands on deck on addressing our problems here. Here we are, the whole time we are talking about the malhandling of the Janneh Commission. Our Attorney General should have been focused here fully, changing the laws, making sure that a lot of the laws and decrees that were still on the books have been repealed. Yet he was busy jaunting around the world, sitting in a courtroom in any given point in time. To the Rohingya case, why not go to think of some human rights case there and go and you can always make a case that the Gambia government can or Attorney General can go and fight some case. We could have the Attorney General today go and fight the Gaza case. Go and fight the Ukrainian case or the Muslims in China. Any of these things, at any given point in time, there are these problems. But before you go and fix something outside, fix the order in your own house.
Would we say one of the calls that we made was to Gambianize our judiciary, and he did that very well. Today, before we used to say, Gambians used to say we have machinery judges who were, violating most of the time our rights. They're doing the bidding of the president. Today, we don't have that. That is some achievement that under him, we were able to get that. Can we agree on that?
Well, to some extent, I actually don't think Gambianizing the judiciary is the goal here is not Gambianizing the judiciary. It's making it better. Let me give you now, if you go in before a court, would you rather have in an ideal world, you would want a competent judge and competent officials all around. What is important is not really the identity or the origin of that judge, but whether or not they are doing the correct. You can have Gambian judges who are mercenaries.
That's true.
Being a mercenary doesn't mean that you are a foreigner. You can have incompetent Gambian judges. If you need operation today, does it matter if your doctor is Gambian or Ghanaian or Nigerian, as long as he or she is competent?
No, you don't. It's the competence you're looking for.
It's the competency. So the first thing here in our judicial or legal reforms is having competency there. And who will tell you today our legal system has, the reform that is needed has taken place?
Not all of it.
Afrobarometer survey came out. Most Gambians do not believe that the reform that are needed have taken place. So I'm not going to credit him with that.
Okay.
And even if something happened in the judiciary, maybe the people you should even be crediting would be
the Chief Justice,
and the Judicial Commission.
Commission.
Not necessarily him. Because when something happens there, if you bring it to his attention, he would say, that's not under my responsibility.
That is under the Chief Justice and his team.
Yeah. So Batambedu, my verdict on his tenure here is that if you have to give him a grade, it would be a failing grade. There is no achievement that he has done here. The things that he's claiming that he has achieved, he didn't achieve them. The initiation of TRRC, Janneh Commission, and CRC, didn't happen because it's bar. Irrespective of who was the AG, those things would have happened. Those things were topics of discussion even before this new government was sworn in. Bar cannot claim credit for their initiation. Their execution, he cannot claim credit for it because one of them we spoke about. The execution of their recommendation didn't happen. And he had an opportunity to make a clear statement about things. But as we know now, with the benefit of hindsight, he was in no position to say anything about the Janneh Commission because of his complicity in the unethical things that happened there. CRC, he wasn't around. But again, how can he claim credit for it? Since he cannot claim credit for its initiation, it didn't pass, you cannot claim credit for it. TRRC, he cannot claim credit for his initiation. The recommendations are yet to be fully implemented. He cannot claim credit for it. The Rohingya case I have just spoken about. Yeah. There are a lot of, we still have the electoral laws that are still governed by decrees. We have laws, but Batambedu decided that he was going to have a law against insulting of government ministers. The man couldn't get his priorities straight. you are in a country that is coming from years of dictatorship, that legal reforms are needed, and you decided that you have time to prosecute a case in another continent. The man failed as an Attorney General and Minister of Justice. He doesn't deserve credit for any of the things he's claiming. And I think, if anything, he actually owes the Gambian people an apology.
Wow, that is, wow. Wow is the only thing that I can say after that. Finally, Lamol, I just have 2 minutes on this. Nawek, finally, in car powership, Bantal Sila. We saw the statement from car powership, we saw the statement from Nawek. And actually, Kabiru Woketa Fanang, Hani saying Kurobe regular in the day. Car powership, that obviously the normal fenkul on and off killing all Minka Kenun Kabrin car powership, Bijam Fosa, I will be keka. Car powership have gone after. You have done so much, especially your RAS. I think our last interview, you gave me the numbers that we have spent on car powership.
Exactly.
It was staggering. But at least with this new management, they have decided. I think, it's good to have these interviews. I tell people, one of the best interviews I always have is you and Dr. and Mane. Because when you guys come, you give me numbers. You give numbers and I can always, somebody said to me, Dr. Hey, Fatou, buka sila Dr. Gajigo la opinion la. Ngay ko Dr. Gajigo e fe offense fe. Along ka recite for months. And that's why when you give us opinions, we don't have a two-mind. Sometimes I don't even read your opinions and I publish them. It's because I trust the numbers. When you came out and quoted numbers coming from car powership and Nawek, the contract with Senegal and all these things, you and especially Mane has been on their case also for all this while. You talked about the reports. Finally, Nawek is telling us enough is enough. Car power is going. It was supposed to be a temporary measure. It went beyond its limit. They are going now. We're doing our own, and they have been doing well. It looks like they've been listening to you guys.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, but again, even if somebody makes a decision, it's also you want to ask yourself whether they've made the right decision, because the car power is not the root of our problem. It's a symptom of a more underlying problem. See, in the energy sector, you have problems at the level of policy. You have problems at the level of management of the state-owned enterprise. Is it a good news that car power, if the contract is ended? Absolutely.
Yeah.
The question we have to ask ourselves, there are a lot of questions we have to ask ourselves. Why was this contract allowed to go on for so long? Normally a power purchase agreement, between a utility company and an independent power producer, these are long-term contracts.
Yeah.
But this thing, there was no statement about the losses that the Gambia government has endured from this agreement. Again, just to refresh memories, we pay on each year we pay more than $30 million, and that capacity, the capacity we are buying is 30 megawatts.
Yeah.
It is as if you build a house for $5 million and you're renting it, and the rent that the tenant is paying is $5 million every year. So each year what we are paying is the value of that generator on that ship. We did that for 7 years. We paid over 200 million to car power. Now that amount, if you had put that in a power plant, you can build a power plant that is at least 200 megawatts.
Yeah. 200
megawatts, given the per capita energy consumption in the Gambia, you can supply more than 300 households. And in the Gambia here, from the last census, we have 300 households. That means if we had used that money here, we would be the ones selling power to Senegal.
Instead of...
Not the other way around. But to make matters worse, during that time, we were paying that money, and it was just going with corruption at the top level of NAWEC. The bills that were coming, that we say we were paying suppliers and vendors, whenever the auditors come and look, they find that what NAWEC is putting in their general ledger, and the difference between what they are claiming and what they are paying, what they're actually paying, is in millions every single year. So this one, the signing of the agreement with is a failure at the top level. There's nothing wrong with signing something at Kerr Power as a stopgap measure on a temporary basis. That's why those contracts are short. 2 years maximum. But they've done this and renewed over three times, up to 7 years in total. When that money could have been spent in invest. Now our generation capacity in the country is less than what it was under Jammeh. Things are only normal if we believe that sitting in a, having several outages in a day is normal. This government is going out there saying they are going to have universal, we're going to have access in. It's complete nonsense. It's not true. It's false. It's not going to happen. We're not going to have it. Even if you connect every single household.
Boro ya full day village or mean connect.
Well, the problem is
he gave us the numbers sometime back. I remember that, but. They have done a lot.
They are
of
connecting many villages right now so that by next year during campaign, they are going to go around, use that as a campaign tool. But the fact of the matter is, even if lights appear temporarily, I can tell you within a few weeks after the election, those people will be in darkness for many, many months. Because to connect people over there, you need to have generation capacity. It's like you can have, think of a big village. You can go, nothing is preventing you from connecting every household, making sure every household has a pump. But if you have one small borehole, do you think you are most people, if they open their tap at the same time, they'll have water? There will not be enough pump.
Yeah.
That's the problem we have here in the country. There isn't enough generation capacity to supply the whole country. Even with this OMVG and the 50 megawatt we are getting from Senegal, it's not enough to power all of the Gambia. You're going to have a situation, either you have low voltage or people have to get accustomed to the reality of frequent blackout as we are undergoing right now. And as long as you have that, you are not going to have development because there will be no foreign investors coming here to invest in the economy, have industrialization when electricity is not regular.
It's not regular.
People are not going to go from growing fruits and going to processing when electricity is not regular. Electricity is one of the key energy key infrastructural things that you need to have before development can occur. Yeah. So going back, it's a good side. It means our losses would be
limited.
Our bleeding would be stopped a bit.
Yeah.
But the roots of the problem are still there. We have failure of policy in the energy sector at the top level. At the management level in NAWEC is still badly run. And the reforms that needed to happen there have not taken place. The strategy that has been done, like the energy roadmap that has been approved by that has been created with the help of the World Bank and approved by the cabinet itself, hasn't been followed very well. What they are doing right now, they actually have deviated from that. So, and I know in that strategy, it does not definitely involve having powership, buying from them for like 7 years. The reason they are spending all of that money is because there are people benefiting from it who were benefiting from corruption in there. And the auditors, the private auditors that have been auditing NAWEC's financial annual reports have been indicating that in multiple annual reports. And the government, did they prosecute anyone from for that?
No.
Was there any special audit of those annual reports? No. So the underlying problems that cause the problems that we have in the energy sector, whether in NAWEC in general or the energy sector in general, they are still there. Kerr Power has gone, it will be replaced by another problem as long as we have the same people in government running this country.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gajigo. Final message. So, dear Jamfata, I don't have anything to ask. What is your final message with all of these things happening, the Republic report and all of these things happen? What is your final message? No, my final message here, I'm very happy to see what the youth are doing. What makes me happy is not that they are protesting, just going out there. The fact that you have a group of people in the Gambia who have been galvanized by something that is happening there, and they are doing it for a cause. It's for a national cause that goes beyond them as individuals. This is something we need to start seeing in this country. For a long time,
the people you see in public affairs, in government, are people who are driven by their personal interests. And this is sort of thing that this current government is encouraging by bringing those people in at the upper echelons of this government. What we have seen in this particular case, what happened over the past couple of weeks is, we can have young people who are galvanized by issues that are happening in the country, and they can show that there is something better to be done. And if you do not start acting in the interest of the country, people, despite the threats of being arrested, will come out and then make their feelings known. And I hope these things spread. And I'm here by basically telling all of the youth what you are doing is the right thing, and steadfast. Be mindful of anyone who might want to come and ride that wave for wrong reason.
Yeah.
But if any action you are doing, remind yourself, why is it that very day I went out to that road, despite the hot sun and the fact that nobody's paying me?
Yeah.
So any subsequent decision from now on, ask yourself why you did that. As long as you remind yourself why you went out in the first place, you will not allow yourself to be either scared or being diverted. Yeah, but keep up the good work.
Keep up the good work. Thank you very much, Dr. Gajigo. It's always entertaining and interesting and refreshing to hear from you on national issues, especially this report by the Republic. And we want to thank you for always honoring our invitation. On behalf of my team, Charles, Lamin, Samsidin, we want to thank you and you all watching. See you again next week. Good night to you all.
We are happy to announce the launch of our new logo. We have evolved since our incorporation in 1997, and it is time to refresh our new look to reflect who we are today. Before I reveal our new look, however, walk with me while I take you through our journey of the last 25 years. Trust Bank was incorporated on July 3rd, 1997 and began operations on October 1st, 1997. Following the collapse of the parent company of its predecessor, Meridian, the CBG stepped in and recapitalized the bank and held the shares in trust, thus the name Trust Bank. In 1999, the first investors who responded to the IPO and paid $1.50 per share received their maiden dividend of 50 bututs per share. In 2000, the bank fully paid back its investment by declaring another dividend of $1.20 bututs per share, making it a cumulative dividend per share of $1.70, which was 20 bututs above the purchase price. Between 2002 to date, share capital has increased from $27 million to $200 million, indicating that the bank has grown organically by plowing back profits to increase capital, while at the same time paying dividends to shareholders. The bank was listed on the Ghana Stock Exchange in November 2002, being the first ever cross-border listing in the sub-region. Now let's talk about awards. The bank was awarded the insignia of the National Order of the Republic of the Gambia, ORG, in the year 2010 by His Excellency the President of the Republic of the Gambia. During the past years, the bank has received so many national and international awards. Banker Magazine, 6 times. Global Finance, 6 times. Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry, 5 times. We began operations with 3 branches. Now, we have 18 branches and 20 ATMs and counting. On digital services, mobile app, check. Online banking, check. Transaction alerts, check. Watch this space. We've got more coming. Creating employment, yes, we've got that too. 400 and counting. And we take great care of our people too. Medical insurance, life insurance, private and state pensions, annual pilgrimages for both Muslims and Christians, training, yes, we do them all. One team, one family, one goal. That's the Trust Bank spirit. On corporate social responsibility, we have spent over $50 million in various causes. We care, and so we share. Over the years, we have paid over $1.6 billion to our shareholders, which translates to a whopping $20 per share and counting. Phenomenal returns for our shareholders who purchased at $1.50. Corporate taxes, over $1 billion is paid. Our journey started with a vision to create the kind of company that delivers quality services and innovative products with an inspired team dedicated to serving our customers, our environment, and our communities at large in the most caring manner. We remain fully committed to delivering excellent services to each of our stakeholders, customers, employees, shareholders, and partners. So, we remain true to who we have always been. As we look